Football and Christian life, we talked about the first 7. Before we get to number 8, let's read a verse that compares athletics to Christianity. Let us run with endurance the race that God has set before us. So we want to run with endurance, comparing it to Christian life to athletics, and specifically football. Number 8, you can get hurt. If you've ever played football, you know you can get hurt. Now, I got some good pictures for you. Look at this guy. Look at that. Can you see that leg? They're not supposed to go like that. It's supposed to go the other way. Ow! Here's another one. Look at this guy's leg. There's your guy, Marvin. When he played for another team, I guess. And look at that leg. Ouch! Here's another one. Look at that foot. His knee's going this way, his foot's going that way. See if you can do that. And this guy, he's all bloodied up from playing the Titans, I guess. I don't know. But anyhow, you can get hurt. I broke his finger playing football. I broke his leg playing football. But the worst injury of all was my last game I played. I told you I played at Bible college. And I was on the line, so you never had a chance to score. The last game, our end was injured. And said, Richard, you know the place. You play in. And so early in the game, he said, I want you to go 5 yards and cut across and go long. I think we can get it. I can do that. And I went out there, and I cut, and I went like this way. The guy fell down. Yes. And I got out there, threw it away, caught it right there. And he's down on the ground. I'm going for a touchdown. There's nobody to catch me except I wasn't used to running hard like that, and I pulled a muscle right in my leg. So now I'm going like this. He gets back up, and at the 5-yard line, he catches me, and I don't score a touchdown. That's the worst injury. Well, anyhow. So you can get, it still bothers me today, you can see. So you can get hurt. Matter of fact, a lot of the players that are playing are hurt, and they're still playing. Go ahead, gets hurt to play football. Well, you can get hurt serving the Lord. Look at these verses in Hebrews 11. Now remember, Hebrews 11 is a faith chapter, and it talks about all these people who did great things through faith in God. And then it says, but others were tortured, refusing to turn from God in order to be set free. They could have got free, but they wouldn't turn from God. They placed their hope in a better life after the resurrection. Some were jeered at, and their backs were cut open with whips. Others were chained in prisons. Some died by stoning. Some were sawed in half. And others were killed with a sword. Some went about wearing skins of sheep and goats, destitute and oppressed and mistreated. Now you say, well, they must have not had as much faith as the first group for them to have that much faith. If they would have just had faith, and they were like they should have been. But then look at the very next verse after that, and it says, they were too good for this world. That's what God says. They stood for me. They were too good for this world. We can't look at somebody who's having a problem and say, well, they should have had more faith. How do you know? I'm telling you, you can have faith sometimes and bad things happen in this world. And we need to understand that, or we're going to be thrown for a loop. Some good people had faith and great things happened. Some good people believed in God, had faith, and they still suffered. Do I understand that? No. We have to come to the place where we say God has more information and more wisdom and more love than we do. And we just have to say, in this world, that's the way it is. I don't understand. I'm not trying to be trite when I say that kind of stuff, but bad things happen to good people in this world. There's Christians today who are being persecuted for their faith in God. They believe, they trust, they're doing what they can, but bad things happen. Jesus didn't say that everything would be good. Matter of fact, he said the opposite. He said, in this world, you will have trouble. And I don't like it, but that's the way it is in this world. And Peter said something else. He said, dear friends, don't be surprised. Don't be surprised. That's what gets us. We're surprised at the fiery trials you are going through as though something strange happening to you. Why me, God? What? Other people not having this trouble. Why me? That's what happens. We get surprised like we should. I wasn't expecting any trouble. But sooner or later, we all have trouble. And being surprised and thinking it's strange and thinking God is picking on us. He's not picking on you. I don't know all his intentions, and I hope we'll know more when we get to heaven. But I do know that in this world, he lets it be a place of suffering and pain and death. And that doesn't mean we should give up faith because that happens. Jesus was hurt. God, the amazing thing is, God came down as a person and went through all this stuff himself. To be rejected, to be hurt, to be killed. Now, being a Christian is a life with a lot of joy, a lot of happiness, a lot of meaning, a lot of peace. But it's also serious business because we're in a warfare. There's a warfare between light and dark, and sometimes there are casualties. And if we don't know we're in a fight, that's when we get in trouble. There's an enemy who opposes you and your family and this church and God working in America and the world. And bad things happen. And sometimes we feel mistreated, like it's us. Sometimes we have job problems. Sometimes we have money problems. Sometimes we have family problems. Sometimes we have health problems. And I'm not making light of any of these. These are big deals. They hurt. Sometimes we have church problems. And sometimes somebody you love dearly dies. Now here's the thing I know. And I've told her this. I would gladly die instead of you. If I could, I'll say, God, I volunteer. And some of you have had loved ones that died, you would have done the same thing. Now let me ask you, did evolution cause that? If we're nothing but animals, would we die? Does evolution say we die sacrificially? No, 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 no. That just shows that there is such a thing as love and God and souls, and we are real people who live eternal. We're not just animals. That we would sacrificially give our lives if we could for somebody. But it hurts that much. And we know that you get hurt in this life. If you're playing football and a referee called a bad call, he said you did something and it was the other guy. You got cheated, you got ripped off. You can go to the bench and say, I quit, I'm not playing anymore. They don't treat you fair. Or you can get in the game and say, it ain't always fair, but I'm still going to play. Now we got a choice now too. We can, when these things happen, and if they haven't happened, they will happen to you. We can either go to the bench and say, I'm not playing anymore, or we can just keep on going. Sometimes life isn't fair. Again, I'm not trying to be trite. I'm trying to be real. I don't like it, but I believe in fairness. Sometimes life isn't fair. Sometimes I could have picked out a lot better people to die than the ones that did. But I'm not doing the picking. Sometimes you get hurt, and let me tell you this. When you're hurt, you got to just keep doing what you can. My motivation over the last 3 or 4 months has been about this big. Most of my life I've been a motivated person. But since June I got hardly any motivation at all. So what do? I just do what my friends tell me. Take one day at a time, take one step at a time, and do what I can. And sometimes that's all you can do. You don't feel like doing it, but you can't quit, so you just keep going. And God honors that. God sees what you're doing, that you don't sit on the bench. Now, I know we can get hurt, and I don't like it. But I'm telling you, it will be worth it after a while. Do what we can. All right, number 9, the coach expects the best. Our coach is Jesus. He's already been in the game. He knows what it's like to get hurt, and he expects our best. There's a verse in 1 Corinthians 9 where Paul said, run to win. Don't just, don't care. Run to win. That's how you ought to live the Christian life. Now, you've probably heard this story, but I'm going to tell you again about the old Texas rancher. He wanted to show off all he had, so he gathered a big party of all his friends and acquaintances. And they had a big party, and there was a gigantic Olympic-sized swimming pool. He filled it up with alligators, and he didn't feed them for a week or two, said it'd be nice and hungry. And he said, here's what I'm going to do. If anybody will swim the length of that pool through that hungry alligators, I'll give you one of three things. I'll give you, number one, $10 million. If you don't want that, I'll give you 10,000 acres of my finest Texas ranch land. And if you don't want that, I'll give you the hand of my daughter, Thelma Lou, in marriage. Well, right as he was saying that, at the other end, there was a splash, and people looked over, and here was a guy swimming. The alligators were coming at him. He was punching them right in the snout. Alligators were coming. He was kicking them over here. He was karate chopping right in the eyeball, doing a swimming hard, swimming fast as he could, and everybody was amazed that he got out of the pool and made it. He come to the Texas rancher, and the rancher said, well, son, I never really believed anybody tried, but I'm a man of my word. What did you want, the cash, $10 million? No, sir, I don't want your money. Oh, you want that land, 10,000 acres? No, sir, I don't want your land. Nah, son, I get it. You want the hand of my daughter, Thelma Lou, in marriage? No, sir, I don't want your daughter. Well, son, what is it you do want? I just want 5 minutes where the guy pushed me in that pool. The way that we run the Christian life should be more like that guy swimming through the pool of hungry alligators. We need, us Christians, to play to win and not just go through the motions. We need to remember we don't have forever in this life. And many of us realizing that. We're getting older and say, wow, yeah, in the world did time fly by that fast. And we realize we only have so long to do what we're going to do, because we keep thinking, one of these days I'm going to get involved in church. One of these days, some people say, I'm going to be saved. One of these days, right now it's not a good time when things settle down, and you know what they do? They never settle down. And then before we know it, our life has passed by. We don't have forever in this life. We have forever, but not in this life. But what we're going to do for Jesus, to tell somebody about Jesus, to learn some more and grow, to teach a class, to help in the church, to serve somebody, to be a part, we've got to do it now. And do it with a good attitude of that we want to do what we can, the best we can for God. Now. And I know many of you are doing that. And you're doing the right thing. To do what we can, best we can, now. Elie Wiesel, this man, wrote a book about his experience in a concentration camp during the Holocaust, World War II in Germany. A Jewish man, wrote a book called Night. He told a story about how that there was a concert violin player there in their dormitory of men. And he had his violin, he brought it with him, but the men were dying. They just didn't feed them enough, they worked them. They were sick, they were starving, some of them were dying. And he said one night this man who looked like he was almost dead, by the name of Joviak, he played a Beethoven concerto in the dark for all the men. He said, this is his words from the book Night, it was pitch dark. I could only hear the violin, and it was as though Joviak's soul were the bow. He was playing his life. The whole of his life was gliding on the strings. His last hopes, his charred past, his extinguished future. He played as if he would never play again. When I awoke in the daylight, I could see Joviak opposite me, slumped over, dead. It was his last time to play, but he played with all his heart. One more time. I can't get out of this place, but what can I do? I know how to play the violin. I'm going to do something for these men. You see what I'm saying? Not all of us can do the same thing, but we can all do something. We can all tell somebody. We can all pray somehow. To work together to do something our best with the time we have left, and we don't know how much time that is. So the coach does Our Jesus coach expects us to do our best. And number 10, there is a goal line and a prize. He said again in 1 Corinthians 9, they do it, these athletes, and he's talking about really probably the ancient Olympics, they do it to win a prize that fades away. They would win the Olympics and they would get a crown of leaves, which certainly would fade away. But we do it for an eternal prize. So, now, I don't know how many of you use Word, Microsoft Word, but Word keeps trying to take that word so out of there when I would type it in. Like you don't need so, like you should just go, I run. So is there a purpose. So is because. It's saying, because I'm winning an eternal prize, I run with purpose in every step. That's why I can run with purpose, because I know I get an eternal prize. That's why we can give our best. That's why we can play even when we're hurt, because we know we get an eternal prize. Now they do it in football. If you get enough yards, you get a touchdown, 6 points. You get enough touchdowns, you win. You get enough wins, you go to the Super Bowl, like the Titans did in the year 2000. I didn't know until this week that both teams get a Super Bowl ring. The losers get a ring that says they're the champs of their conference. So the Titans got one for 99 AFC champions because we didn't win. Some of you remember that, even though it's ancient history now. And we haven't played in the Super Bowl since. But even if you win, you get a ring and you get some money. And that's something. I'm not putting that down. That's a big achievement. But compared to what we get, that ain't nothing. Right? Compared to what we get, to go to heaven forever, be with God and our loved ones and have a purpose that goes on eternally, we have a lot greater prize. And we cannot forget that. If we forget our eternal prize, then it's easy to get weak. Last week, now Jared and Suzanne are on vacation this weekend. Last week, I was watching the Alabama game. Now, Sandy, my wife's from Alabama, so we watched the Alabama game together through the season. And so last week was the first time I watched it by myself. But I watched the Alabama game, and what I do is I record it and then try to give enough time so I can go through the commercials. I don't have to watch it. So I'm watching the Alabama game, and I don't know how many of you pay attention to college football. Alabama last week was #1 and was losing to Texas. Losing. 10 minutes left, and they were behind. I said, I can't believe they may lose this game. And then I got a text from Jerry, who was watching the game live, and he said, Bama wins. I said, well, thanks. I'm not through watching the game, but thanks for letting me know. He said, oh, I'm sorry. I said, no, this is better. I'm not worried now. I know we're going to win. And they won by 1 point. Sometimes it looks bad for the Christian team. You know, I keep reading these emails. Christianity's going down in the West, going down in the U.S. Whatever it's doing, I know we're going to win. We're on a winning team. And so we don't have to worry, man. Jesus wins. And don't hate me because I root for Alabama, all right? Roll Tide. We got one more, all right. We're going to win. Now I've got 2 sad stories, but I want us to see that even in the sad stories, there's a good ending. There can be a good ending. Let me tell you this first story. This picture is a picture, I don't even know who drew this picture, but it illustrates something that happened a few years ago. The young woman on the left with the blonde hair is representing my niece, my brother's daughter, Bethany. Bethany was a good, sweet Christian woman married to David Lytle, who's the guy with the beard. They were in Peru or somewhere in South America teaching in a Christian school, and she felt sick. She decided to get checked out when she came home. She went to the doctor and he said, "You've got cancer." 9 days later, before they even started treatment, she died of cancer. 9 days. 32 years old. David met another woman, Jackie, who is the one next to him. And by the way, these 3 children are Bethany's. She left 1, 3, and 5. She left 3 children. David in fact married Jackie. Jackie and David had a baby, Theo, who was very unhealthy from the beginning, and he died. That's the baby over there. So what's this representing? David and Jackie and the 3 children of Bethany, Bethany and Theo with Jesus, and holding the hand together. The idea is they're all alive, they're just in different places. That is some of the saddest story to me you can think of, and yet it has a happy ending if we see Jesus. That Bethany is still alive. Little Theo is still alive. And by the way, Jackie and David had a healthy girl this year. Vanilla. I bring up sad stories to tell us that even in the sad stories, with Jesus, there is hope. There can be happiness. Because there is eternal life. And we have eternal life in the Goal Line Enterprise. One more is a picture of this guy, Chris Hummel from Indiana. And when I got out of college, went to Indiana as an assistant pastor, youth director. The very first Sunday, a woman came up to me, she said, "Now I've got 5 teenagers, I want you to help me take care of them." 5 teenagers. Chris was one of them. By the way, we became good friends with that family. Chris's sister Carla and her husband Mark had been in our church and sang for us before. I don't know if you remember, but anyhow, Chris Hummel went to the same college that some of us went to. He met a girl from Florida. He answered the call to preach. Got out and went to the suburb of Indianapolis to a church. They had just got married. They had a watch night service. I don't know if you know what there was, our New Year's Eve service where you sort of pray in the New Year at midnight. Went back to the little house next to the church they were staying in. 21 years old, something like that. They think what happened is they started a little fire in the fireplace and sat in front of the fireplace, probably talking over their life to be together, what it's going to be living here in Indianapolis. Because they must have fell asleep talking in front of the fireplace. A spark went out, caught the place on fire. It looks like, from where they found the bodies, that she was overcome. Chris was dragging her, carrying her to the door, and then he was overcome, and they both died right in front of the doorway. 21 years old, with all their life to serve God. If you knew Chris, he's one of these bubbly kind of guys that never met a stranger and was proud to represent Jesus. And he thought, what in the world? Why? And I don't know why. And it is sad. About 10 years later, as I said, we became friends with a family. We had moved to Delaware. Chris's parents came to see us in Delaware. They had a goal. They rode motorcycles to ride the motorcycle to every state capital. They wanted to go to Dover. They came to our house, stayed a few days, rode down to Dover. I was sitting there talking with Chris's dad one day, and we were talking about Chris. And he said, "You know what happened?" He said, "I was so sad after it happened. But I was looking through Chris's Bible, which survived the fire, and I found Chris had taken something from that Dwight Moody, an old preacher, had wrote it in his own hand on a piece of paper. It was stuck in his Bible. I found that." He said, "Richard, this is what helped me. It said, 'Someday you will read in the papers that I am dead. Don't you believe a word of it. At that moment I shall be more alive than I am now.'" He said, and that gave me comfort. I knew that Chris was alive. And Chris, the other thing he found in his Bible is Chris had written a tract. It hadn't been published. He was just writing a tract. And I thought I laid it up here, but it must have, there's my, these things try to fall off.
Pastor.
There it is. Thank you. He wrote a tract and it published, Pick Me Up, Please. Chris had wrote this tract. And he said, realizing that we are all sinners, this is the last paragraph. If you want eternal life, then pray right now and ask God to forgive your sins. The Bible assures us that we ask God someday, or ask Him sincerely, forgive us, He will forgive. Don't you want His forgiveness and an eternal home in heaven today? And I ask you that, if there's anybody watching this or here, if you want an eternal home, all you have to do is ask. Oh God, I'm sorry. I want to turn to you. I give my life and I want to go to heaven. And you can be saved. I hated that Chris died. Such a good guy. And Linda, his wife. I hated that Bethany died. But where would we be without the hope of eternal life? With the sad things that happen. We can have hope with what's going on. Jesus is alive, and we can live too. Let's not forget that. Keep on keeping on, folks. Recommit your commitment.